Yesterday, in your testimony, you talked about this movement towards digital currency, something I'm very interested in, and you indicated, it was possible that there might be a United States-backed digital currency. We have the possibility of doing that. The question I question is, would that be desirable? How do we, I get the component parts around it. A digital currency might provide convenience and potentially even lower friction cost in terms of credit to consumers. But how do we weigh in privacy and cyber concerns? How would that deal with our retail banking system? And do you think the Fed has the capacity to do this without congressional approval? Fill out a little bit more, and then I've got one last question about China's role in this space. But talk to me first about the domestic implications.
Sure. So you listed the potential costs and benefits. The benefits would include, perhaps greater financial inclusion, lower costs, more convenience, and all those things. The risks or costs would include cyber risk and fraud risk and privacy risk and things like that. So I think there's a lot to weigh and a lot to work on there. Every major central bank in the world right now is doing a deep dive on digital currencies, and we think it's our responsibility to be at the very forefront of knowledge and thinking about a central bank digital currency.
Would you take a positive action on that without congressional input? Do you feel like you have that authority?
So it would depend a lot on the design choices. It's a good question. One that we're working on. I'd say we're working very broadly, including working with other central banks around the world on this. And there's just a lot of thinking and experimentation and understanding that we're gaining. And if there's a need for, if we conclude that we need more authority and that this is something appropriate to do, then we'll ask for the authority.
Well, one of the things you mentioned yesterday, and I again share Senator Sass and a number of us who are on the Intel community concern about the rise of China in a series of areas, and I think it is clear that China may move quicker than us on a digital currency. You said you've got some visibility into what China might be doing on digital currency. I'd love you to spell that a little bit. Do you think they'll use their influence through their kind of Belt and Road investment strategy and the number of countries that have kind of bought into that system, that they might be then also buying into that Chinese digital currency? What would that do in terms of cross-border? What would that do in terms of dollar supremacy? Any further guidance you might have on your insight into China's actions in this space would be helpful.
I would just say we have to assume that what would that mean? We have to ask the question, what would it mean if China had a digital currency that had fairly wide adoption, including to other countries? We've got to ask that. I think we've also got to ask, what if a private sector entity, a large company with a large network of users has a digital currency? So we're looking.
That's already popped out, and I think we had pretty bipartisan concerns on that one.
So that's why we're doing all this work. We understand I would say Libra was something of lit a bit of a fire. This is something we've been focused on digital currencies for a couple decades, but it's really lit a fire around the world right now. So we are doing a great deal of work.
My time's up. I just want to say I would urge, having seen China's ability to move aggressively in a series of other areas, that you start forging that coalition of the willing amongst other central banks sooner rather than later. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.